With it being 6:35, I call the Francis Howell School District Board of Education meeting to order. Please join me. Let's see, this evening we have Logan Shelfout, who is our two-time state diving champion from Francis Howell North. If you will lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Logan. Board, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lang. By roll call? Or no, sorry, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda this evening is recognitions. Mr. Dykman.
Thank you, Mrs. Cope. Francis Howell teachers Kim Linneman and Teresa Swearingen joined an elite group of St. Louis area educators selected to receive the 2019 Emerson Excellence in Teaching Award. This award recognizes teachers for their passion in teaching, their impact on student learning, and their knowledge and creativity in the classroom. The recipients are chosen for their outstanding contributions to the teaching profession and to the students they teach. Kim has worked at Francis Howell since 2004 and teaches English Language Arts at Francis Howell High School. Kim, would you please come on up? She's a proud alum who attended Francis Howell schools from kindergarten through high school and is also a national board certified teacher. Teresa began her career at Francis Howell in 2007. Teresa, would you please come on up? She's a dedicated educator who started at Central Elementary working as a paraprofessional. She returned to college, completed her student teaching at Central, and then joined the certified staff as a classroom teacher in 2014. The Emerson Excellence in Teaching Awards program, sponsored by Emerson, annually recognizes more than 100 educators in the St. Louis metro area. From kindergarten through college, teachers who exemplify excellence in their field. Congratulations to Kim and Teresa.
So wonderful.
There was one that way.
You can get scoot in the front row. Perfect. Your certificate in the middle is upside down. Do one more. Thank you.
Last month at the St. Peter's Recplex, Francis Howell North sophomore Logan Shelfout repeated as the Class 2 1-meter diving champion. His total of 499.7 points narrowly edged SLU sophomore Sebastian Lawrence. Logan had to fight from behind to win after trailing by 4 points heading into his final dive. Logan's 3.0 degree of difficulty was the key as he executed the attempt with precision to score 66.5 points. Logan was coming off a victory at the GAC South meet where he broke his own conference record by amassing 582 points. In winning state as a freshman, he set a Class 2 record with 503.55 points. Ladies and gentlemen, the Class 2 state diving champion, Logan Shelfout. I don't know what it is, but we got it for 2 more years of it.
Yeah, Logan, what are we going to do? 2 more years? You got this?
I'll try.
Okay.
Do it, Dad.
Yeah.
You set the bar or board pretty high.
Hashtag Great job, Logan.
And here to introduce our student board representative is Sager Middle School Principal, Dr. Candy Worley.
Good evening, Board of Education. Dr. Ray Hendricks Harris, our Executive Cabinet. Pleased to be here this evening to introduce Stevie Lupo. She has been a student in the Francis House School District since preschool. She is the daughter of Steve and Janae Lupo. Steve is a great student, and we are honored to have her serve as our board representative from Sager Middle School. Students and staff would say that her positive energy is contagious. Since becoming the Student Council President, Stevie has offered support to all of her committees and peers. It is important to her to be at every meeting helping her fellow members succeed at making Student Council known throughout the school. Her fundraising ideas have helped the school raise money and items for different organizations ranging from canned goods to drug awareness to helping raise funds for the 8th grade dance. She's also started school announcements so students could be familiar with her voice talking to them instead of another video from the principals. Lastly, Stevie encourages her peers to be on time and helpful at meetings. She includes students who may be shy or new to the school, and she is a positive role model for her peers and people and teachers, and all of the students and teachers look up to her. So we're very pleased to introduce Stevie Lupo.
Obligatory photo out first.
One more. Thank you.
Hi, Stevie. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are happy to have you with us, and we would love if you want to participate in our conversation. You're welcome to. If you don't, that's okay as well. You get to participate as fully as you want, except you don't get to vote. Fair enough? Okay. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right. The next section of our agenda is comments. FHEA. FHEA. FISPA. Okay, thank you. Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, second by Mrs. Lang. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is our section called Academic High Target. And our first best practice we're going to hear from this evening is regarding fine arts.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Hendricks Harris, and Executive Cabinet. I'd like to bring up some folks. We're going to highlight our high school vocal music program this evening, and so Michelle Ridlin, our Fine Arts Coordinator, and our vocal music directors from House Central and How High are here to join us and talk about their program.
Great, thank you, Mr. Brothers. I'm so very glad to be sharing the best practices of our vocal music program with you tonight. As you heard before the meeting, we have incredibly talented and hardworking vocalists in the Francis House School District. Our students hone their craft through our 4 choir classes: chorus, treble choir, concert choir, and chamber choir. Over 400 students are enrolled in these classes this year and develop better musical skills and collaborative work habits while solidifying a strong peer group. This program means a lot to our students, who typically participate multiple years. Not only do they learn, but they have fun while doing so.
Hi, What does choir mean to you?
Choir is everything to me. It's the most fun place I've ever been in my entire life, and it's another family. I used to rule the world, seas that rise when I gave the word.
A family.
Sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to roam.
Stupendous. What have you gotten out of the past 4 years in choir? I have made a bunch of really close relationships with many people that I wouldn't be friends with otherwise.
My enemy's eyes, listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king's dead, long live the king.
How has choir supported you throughout high school?
It supported me by giving me a safe place to truly be myself.
My castle stand upon it.
I am proud to introduce to you two of our vocal directors tonight. We have Elizabeth Baird from Francis Howell Central High School and Carrie Fitzpatrick from Francis Howell High School.
Okay, so as you can see from that video, students take choir for a multitude of reasons. I actually did my dissertation on this and did research with my students, and we found some surprising facts. They take it for academic reasons, of course. They get honors credit available for some of our upper level classes, fine art credit, all those things, but social connections as well, and then emotional reasons. And if you can see from that pie chart, it's actually the majority of the reason why the students take the class and continue in the class is for those social and emotional reasons. They take choir because it creates that family feel, those connections, those are lifelong connections. They are a hugely diverse group of students, and then they find something in common with everybody in the room. They are there for the musical purposes as well, but even these pictures show them combining their musical talents with students around the entire St. Louis area in other events as well, finding something in common with people in a time when there's so much division in our society and culture. They find a connection.
Why do you take choir?
I take choir because I have a deep understanding and love for music, and I love to sing and share my voice with people.
I enjoy music, and I wanted to take this class to help me grow as a musician.
I took choir to continue my family legacy and to see if I enjoy it.
I took choir because I wanted to do something different than a traditional classroom setting, and I wanted to make music and be different from more than just a minor group. I take choir because I like to sing and be around people who like to sing as much as I do.
I took choir because ever since I was in 4th grade when I first started doing it, it's been the only constant in my life.
I take choir for the emotional aspect and because this is my way to really show my faith.
I took choir to feel like I'm a part of something.
I take choir because I really enjoy the class and all the community that's with it.
What do we do here?
We use emotion, we learn how to use emotion and expressions to portray a message in song. We connect with each other and to our audiences.
We work together to create beautiful music that can have an impact.
In choir we sing, but we also impact ourselves and our community.
We don't just make music in choir, we change lives with our music and also make friendships and family.
We do a variety of things here, from learning how to grow musically and creating memories. We make music, memories, and we work together as a team and we encourage and support one another to create beautiful music and convey a message to the audience.
Build a safe place and a family all together as one.
We become better singers and we also have a great time here.
All right, student leadership and collaboration is a main part of what we do to build those connections and why students come back every year. Because there's so much music to learn throughout the school year, it's beneficial to focus, especially early on in learning the music, in individual voice parts in small groups, and we call these sectionals. So these student-led sectionals give an opportunity for students to demonstrate autonomy and ownership. Through collaborative learning, students apply music literacy knowledge while utilizing soft skills to connect with the music and support each other in their learning. We also provide student leadership training outside of class at all 3 of our high schools in our choir program. We all encourage service-focused leadership through workshops and continual training, which helps develop students into the citizens they will become. Students build a strong connection to the choir program.
each other, and their director. This results in dedicating to each other, their school, and building relationships. These photos show genuine friendship, positivity, and recognizing each other's strengths through team building exercise, as you can see in the top picture there. We strive for each student to be a caring citizen as they leave high school and contribute to their greater community.
One of the most common views of our choir classes from outsiders is our performances, of course. Often our students learn upwards to 10 to 15 songs per semester in a multitude of language styles, etc., in order to perform at a multitude of events and venues, such as a board meeting. But they don't just sing. They don't just perform at formal concerts in those kinds of atmospheres. They also carol around the schools, at all 3 schools. We have clinics where we work with other students, and we have outside groups come work with us, and we collaborate with the younger singers. That's what the bottom picture is, shows the musicians from all of the Francis Howell schools, 4 to 12, that feed into Howell High, all working together. And we also sing together, our 3 high schools. This picture shows members from all 3 Francis Howell high schools performing together with the St. Charles County Youth Orchestra in our first biannual Masterwork collaboration concert that many of you were able to attend last year. We're looking forward to doing this again next year. And one of the amazing activities that we take part in is our traveling performances. All 3 groups perform across the country at festivals and competitions in Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New York in the past. We get invited to perform to these. No, we don't just go out. They come to us and say, we want you to be a part of our festivals because of the great things that are happening in the classroom. The word is out. There's great music happening in Francis Howell. These experiences provide a sense of ownership and pride in the work students are doing every day in rehearsal. This picture shows the choirs from Francis Howell North and the choirs from Francis Howell Central, combined with 15 other choirs from around the United States and the world, including England, Spain, and Portugal, all coming together to sing at Carnegie Hall in New York City by invitation from one of the top choral composers in the country right now, Ola Yalo.
Choir classes encourage a culture of interaction and collaborative learning. There's a visible sense of teamwork in daily rehearsals as we work toward performances. This promotes a supportive classroom environment where striving for excellence is encouraged by all. One of the outcomes of being involved in a high school choir is motivation to do their best work in all aspects of life. One of the ways that we encourage students to work to the highest level of performance is to prepare for district and state music contests. Students perform amongst area high school choirs at state large ensemble contest each spring. And each of our schools takes at least 3, I think 4 up to this point, 4 ensembles from our classes to perform at state music contests. And each spring, this format showcases the entire year's work, and the judges provide ratings and feedback for the educational value to each group. So our state contest overview here, you can read that we present 2 contrasting pieces of music for adjudication. So our judges have an established set of criteria in areas of fundamental technique and music effect. There are 3 certified experts who judge or adjudicate in the performance room, and 1 judge in the sight reading room. So sight reading means that this is extra fun because the students go in to a room after they've performed on stage and are evaluated on the process of how well they perform music they have never seen before. No, there's not a piano playing along with them. It is a cappella. You get a pitch, you get 4 minutes, good luck. So we are teaching them how to do that and how to develop those skills of independent musicianship in class every day. All of our schools score very well at contests, which have earned us a high regard across the area in having high quality choir programs. So we thank you for the opportunity to present this for you tonight.
Thank you for your support here. Be sure to check out our social media sites to see us at our spring concerts. Every single school has about 6 performances in the spring, each one. We would love to have your presence there and come support us, so check out our social media. And thank you so much for supporting these kids and to see them do such awesome things. Thank you.
I would like to take a minute and thank you for bringing the students this evening. You know, one of the things I think is so important about music is when it moves you. And so sitting, listening to the students tonight, a little tearing up during one of it, some goosebumps, they were phenomenal. So thank you for allowing them to and helping them come visit us this evening. Board, any other comments?
Do you have a date for the collaboration concert again yet?
We do not, it should be in February of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, next school year.
We just need notice up here.
We will tell you as soon as we
Thank
got
you.
it. We appreciate it.
So thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
I just would like to take a quick second to say, first of all, thank you. And then just, you know, as we work our new strategic plan and think about what workforce readiness looks like to draw the board's attention to the connection that's there with our fine arts program. So you can't pull that off without a lot of collaboration and teamwork, which is something that we know our employers are looking at, as well as, you know, the thing they're struggling most with now in the workforce development report is work ethic. And these kids have a great work ethic to get to the point of what you heard earlier today. So we don't talk about it a lot in regard to 21st century skills or to goal 1, but all those skills are very much within the program. So I just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Right. Next on our agenda, under Academic High Target Board, we have a curriculum review first reading. You can see that there's a couple of courses there to review, so take a look. The next on our agenda is the 2021 school calendar. If you recall, we did have a working session on that. So board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2021 school calendar as presented with winter break as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Lang, seconded by Mrs. Walker. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Did you want to talk about the school calendar?
Sure, I'll just add that I wanted to point out that I asked Lisa to make a change in the title of break from in December to winter break. This break title is consistent with the other breaks and is in line with not only our strategic plan, but our attorney's advice.
Thank you. Since we had the work session, I didn't go for discussion. I should have. I apologize. Thank you.
It was a change.
Did we vote, Laura? We did. Thank you. All right. I'm ready for winter break already. Next on our agenda, we have the MSBA December board report.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of December. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the 2020 session of the Missouri General Assembly that convenes on January 8th. We're sure to see the return of some familiar issues during the session, including charter school expansion and voucher proposals. MSBA Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, says he expects to see legislation allowing charter schools in communities with a population of 30,000 or more.
This is public money, and school boards were elected to oversee public schools. This is public money going to private people to run in essence, a private school. These are not, charter schools should be sponsored by the local elected school board. If they are in fact good, someone must be responsible to the voters and for the tax money that's being spent. Charter schools are not given to the voters. They have an independent board, and so therefore, this is it's outside the control of the local elected people.
MSBA supports only those charter schools that are authorized by local boards of education and subject to the same accountability standards as other Missouri public schools, and supports measures that increase charter school accountability to state and local taxpayers. Currently, charter schools in Missouri exist only in St. Louis and Kansas City. Lawmakers are also expected to consider once again legislation to move school board elections from April to November. Reed says that would make school board elections in Missouri more partisan.
There is a push nationwide for moving school board elections to November. We believe that that causes them to become very political. Early elections, April elections are for local elected situations. November elections are partisan, and this would become much more partisan. People would not understand, and they would get lost. School board elections would get lost in the myriad of other things that are running. So it's a bad move. We need to make sure that local elections are held at a time when local decisions are made.
Reed says he expects a strong effort to fully fund the foundation formula once again for the next fiscal year, but he says significant increases in transportation funding will be more difficult to achieve. MSBA continues to support increases in funding for both the foundation formula and student transportation costs. We'll be keeping you informed on developments during the legislative session through our weekly Legislative Voice newsletter, critical issue alerts, and immediate updates through Twitter. Information on legislative issues also can be found on MSBA's Action Center website. Our annual Legislative Forum and Public Schools Day at the Capitol is set for February 10th in Jefferson City. You can register for that event through the MSBA website. A $1 million federal grant will enable MSBA's Center for Education Safety to create a new Missouri School Safety Academy to provide basic school safety training for school district staff. The grant also will allow CES to offer a certification program for school safety coordinators, administrators, law enforcement personnel, and school resource officers. The training program will focus on current school safety issues included in the Governor's School Safety Task Force report and the standards for school safety included in the proposed 6th version of the Missouri School Improvement Program. The School Safety Academy will be launched this coming spring. Well, last month we told you about Governor Parsons' executive order directing several state agencies to develop a statewide campaign to warn young people in Missouri about the dangers of vaping. That campaign is now underway and features this public service announcement.
Let's clear the air. Vaping includes nicotine. Nicotine is addicting.
Teens who vape are 4 times more likely to end up smoking.
90% of smokers started as a teen.
Let's clear the air. Vaping is not safe for us.
The social media portion of the Clear the Air campaign is now available for your school district's use through the Department of Health and Senior Services website. A separate website also has been created to help young people learn more about the dangers of vaping. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
All right, board, next on our agenda is fiscal responsibility. I would entertain a motion to approve the 2018-2019 audit and annual report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mr. Hain. Mr. Supple?
Thank you, Mrs. Crowe. I'd like to invite Mr. Rick Grotza from our audit firm of Kerber, Eck, and Breckel to come forward and make a presentation to the board this evening.
Good evening, and thank you, members of the Board of Education, for having me here this evening to present the results of our audit for Francis House School District for the year ended June 30th, 2019. Just as a quick reminder, as you know, it's management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, otherwise known as GAAP. It's also management's responsibility to design, maintain, and implement internal control over financial reporting. Our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. And we did perform our audit in accordance with 3 separate sets of auditing standards, generally accepted auditing standards promulgated by the AICPA, government auditing standards promulgated by the Comptroller General of the United States, and of course uniform guidance. As a result of our audit, we issued what's called an unmodified opinion That's the best of 3 possible opinions that we can render as auditors, and that means that based on all of our audit test work, we did in fact find the financial statements to be fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So as part of our audit, if we were to identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, we're required to bring those to your attention. We did identify just one material weakness. So as you know, the district prepares its budget, internal financial statements, and the annual secretary of the board report that it submits to DESE on a cash basis of accounting during the year. Once a year, just strictly for external financial reporting purposes, the district takes the extra steps to convert its cash basis financial statements to the modified accrual and accrual basis financial statements. So during our audit, we did identify a couple of adjustments that were necessary to assist the district in making that conversion. And I just want to remind everyone that, and I say this every year, but the district is just one of a handful of districts in the state. I think there's 8, in fact, that take the extra effort to convert the financial statements to GAAP, or modified accrual and accrual basis financial statements. So we certainly commend the district for all the extra time and effort that's required to do that. Also, as part of our audit, we test the district's compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. We didn't find any non-compliance that would be material to the financial statements. A second part of our audit is our audit of the district's compliance with requirements that are applicable to its federal programs. This year we tested the special education cluster as a major federal program. As a result of that testing, we again issued an unmodified opinion, one of the best of 3 possible opinions that we can render. And what it means in this case is that based on our test work, we found that the district complied with all the requirements that are applicable to the special education program. And we didn't identify any material weaknesses in internal control over compliance, nor did we identify any findings that were required to be disclosed. And the third and final part of our audit is our audit over specific requirements of Missouri laws and regulations, specifically budgetary and disbursement procedures, and accurate attendance and transportation records. We did perform this piece of our audit in accordance with the attestation standards established by the AICPA, and again, we issued an unmodified opinion, meaning that we believe that the district complied with all the requirements related to those areas. So in addition to our audit reports that accompany your financial statements, our professional standards promulgated by the AICPA require that we give you some additional information about the results of our audit. First, all the significant accounting policies that the district uses in preparing the financial statements are described in Note 1. It's again important to note that the district uses the accrual basis of accounting, again one of just a handful of districts in the state to do that. There were no new accounting policies that were adopted this year, so if you're comparing this year's financial statements to last year, you can be assured that you're comparing apples to apples. There are some accounting estimates included in the financial statements, as there are with most financial statements, and as part of our audit, we do evaluate all the assumptions and significant estimates and determine that they're reasonable. There were no complex or controversial transactions that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus. As part of the audit, we also test the adequacy of the note disclosures that accompany the financial statements. We found those disclosures to be neutral, consistent, and clear. No disagreements with management regarding any accounting or auditing matters. The adjustments to the accounting records identified as a result of our audit were accepted by management and are reflected in the financial statements. We did obtain what we call the management representation letter, and that's where management represents to us that they believe the financial statements are complete and accurate, and that all the information that would be material to the audit has been disclosed to us. As far as we know, management didn't consult with any other independent accountants to get a second opinion on any controversial accounting matters. Just in conclusion, I would like to thank Kevin and Cindy and the rest of the team for all their cooperation and assistance throughout the audit process. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I start with a clarifying question?
Yes.
So if we did not choose to convert from cash to accrual, there would be no findings?
That's correct.
Board, any questions? Discussion? Mr. Hain?
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple questions. We had some of this. In there, I mean, you're saying qualified, unqualified, all that good stuff, but if this, make it simple for me, is like if we were getting a grading system, would this be like an A, B, C, D, or where would this fall into line with something along those lines?
Well, there's only 3 opinions, so an unmodified opinion would be an A opinion.
Okay. And you said there were no significant areas of concern in the report?
Just the one finding that we talked about with the extra assistance that the district needed in converting its financial statements.
Okay, and that's the same thing that we've had for a couple of years now?
Correct.
And it's just because of the cash conversion?
Correct.
Okay, and I know you talked about internal controls, and they've also got
We don't express an opinion on internal controls, but if we were to identify any, issues, we'd be required to bring those to your attention, and we didn't identify any other issues related to internal controls.
Because we're in the middle of doing some additional audits that you guys are working on for us, and I guess you'll be back in a month or 2 to present some of those, and then we'll get into further detail on some of those other things. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're anticipating a work session in January to talk about the internal financial procedures audit that is in process right now. So we'll do that more in a workshop than a presentation. Have some conversation.
Board, any other discussion? All of those in favor? Aye. All of those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for the information.
Thank you.
All right, Board, next on the agenda, we have purchases over $7,500. I would entertain a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lane, seconded by Mr. Lang. All of those any discussion? All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda, we have our monthly financial report for November of 2019. I would entertain a motion to approve the November 2019 financial report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lang, seconded by Mrs. Walker. Mr. Supple.
Nothing further, Mrs. Carter.
Thank you. Board, any questions or discussion? All of those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bear with me while I read this one. Board, I would entertain a motion for a resolution calling for a special election in the Francis Howell R3 School District, St. Charles County, Missouri. The district, number 1, on the question whether to borrow money in the amount of $244 million for the purpose of financing the cost of acquiring land and buildings and constructing, renovating, repairing, expanding, improving, furnishing, and equipping district school sites, buildings, and related facilities, and to issue general obligation bonds of the district for the payment thereof. 2, designating the time of holding said election. And 3, authorizing and directing the Secretary of the Board of Education of the district to give notice of said election.
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Lang. Mr. Supple, anything to add?
We have had an opportunity to have several conversations with the board about how to address the comprehensive facilities master plan that has identified the work that really needs to be completed over the next 20 years or so in the district. The resolution that we're bringing to you tonight includes an amount of money that we think will be sufficient to address those needs that have been identified to the board previously in our conversations and allow us to begin to systematically address the ongoing issues with facilities that just are reaching a point in their life cycle where there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We also have an opportunity to bring some greater equity to one of our high schools by looking at a new facility for Francis Howell North that would allow them to have a facility that is on par with the other two high schools in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Supple. We've had several community meetings and workshops and discussion to go forward potentially with putting this on the ballot in April. Board, any discussion or questions? Mr. Hain?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody understands this. I know we've covered some of these things in work sessions and different things, but when this is approved and passed in April, we're not going to go out and issue $244 million worth of bonds. That'll be incrementally over the next 10 years approximately. I'm assuming it'd be something like that, be spaced out.
Yes.
So
That's correct, Mr. Hain. There are some restrictions when you issue bonds. There's a period of time within which you have to spend the proceeds. The government doesn't want you to unduly benefit from having a lot of money sitting in the bank. So yes, we would space out the issuance of the bonds to match the construction schedules that we develop.
And I know that, there's been schedules published, phase 1, phase 2, all different things like that. And, from looking at our last bond issue that was out in 2008, it's kind of like a budget. It's a living, breathing document. There's always going to be changes and manipulations to it. I mean, this is our best guess as of this point in time, but some of those things may change or evolve over the course of time. So, when we're approving this stuff, this is going to span a 10-year period. I don't know how many of the people on our executive cabinet will be there. I don't know how many of us board members will be here, but it's up to the people in the audience and us and everybody to do their due diligence to make sure that the board and administration follows through on their commitment to spending these funds wisely.
I would agree with you, Mr. Hain. I think it's a very important point to remember that decisions will need to be made at the point in time of what's in the best interest of the district. So we may not have anticipated doing a classroom addition to elementary school X, but it turns out that construction costs are especially favorable for the district, and so that gets bumped up a little bit. I think the board seated at the time, the administration that's making recommendations at the time, would take a look at what's in the best interest of the district. And yes, we are developing specific schedules that will help us understand how we're going to phase that work in, but you are absolutely correct that there will need to be modifications to that as we go along based on timing of issuance of the bonds and what's in the best interest of the district from a construction schedule, and maybe even combining projects in order to get some economy of scale in what otherwise would be two smaller projects. We could combine those with a single general contractor and save some money. There will be determinations like that made at the time.
For clarification purposes, I have moved the project list to the information part of tonight so that it didn't appear as if the board was voting on the projects, but we're voting on the bond in order to get the comprehensive facilities master plan completed.
Mrs. Stiglich?
I just want to make sure again that the reason that the $244 million is so that we don't have to go back out in 3 to 4 or 5 years and ask our voters to approve another set of bonds. Is that correct?
That is our intention, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Board, any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Supple. All right, Stevie, we are getting ready to move into our work session, so you have a choice to make. We're going to move down to the tables here, and that helps us have a more collaborative conversation on a couple subjects that we're going to cover. Tonight, we're going to talk about substitute teacher no-fills. We're going to talk about our staffing proposal for next year, and we're going to talk about vacation station and preschool tuition. So you may join us, or you may choose to leave. It's up to you. Okay, so before you make that decision, I want to thank you for being here with us tonight. Did you have any questions or comments about anything that we covered tonight? Are you a fiscal guru? Are you ready to comment on our audit and our financials? No? No? Not yet, right? Not yet. What do you think you're going to do as you
go into high school, and then have you thought about college or career, or?
For my career, I kind of want to be a orthopedic surgeon.
Really?
And I want to have a house out in Colorado and here. And here.
I think that's an excellent goal.
surgeon, you can have a house.
Do you ski or hike?
Yes, my family goes out to Colorado twice a year to ski and snowboard.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, do you have any questions for any of us?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And like I said, you're welcome to join us, but you also don't have to. All right? All right, board, we will take a 5-minute recess and join into work session.
I just saved your life. I don't. Fixing that table. Thank you. Yeah, really? I didn't fix his brake lines, so Mary, out the parking lot.
Well, enjoy it. We gotta sit here tonight and fix it up.
There you go.
There are the chairs too. Yes. So we'll let me know when it's all ready. And I'll get up. No, last year I was at Mary, she was doing
She got that off easy.
Thank you for having me.
For making us all look
oh my God. I still look at that. Are you serious? I know that was also sent to me.
What about? Did you read the whole guideline?
Yes. That's open. Yes. We are St. Charles. And I know everything. Did you see Emma?
No,
Yes.
I'm still up there now.
She's in the NICU. She's there every day. But it's amazing. So you need to go and see at Troy. Yes. I need to suggest my camp supervisor, I do district equipment. Yeah. So it's already
I'm using He's looking what in the world?
He's like, Papa. They can call you Papa? Yes, that makes sense. Yes, yes. And that's getting ready to begin in January. They're like, a lot of cooking. For him, for the high school, like, we did that, like, last year. So,
mom went his,
I know, right? And what the girls think a good experience.
I have a sheet.
Are we ready?
I don't know. Right here. That's when the new apartments are going up. That she has to, I don't know.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, well, she, well, no, it's okay.
well, yeah, I mean, we went through it that day, careful.
Her face. Oh, yeah, I got it.
I mean, this is on top of us.
I know.
$500.
Let me ask Deb, and she might have, I mean, I would talk to her.
Yeah, I asked them for district, like, if they don't do it.
Right.
And
But
that's
just.
they use a service to help find a child.
Oh, right.
But we're waiting. We're not really waiting.
Yeah,
Nikki's been doing it first.
I mean, if it wasn't.
Right, and it's St. Joe's. See, okay. They have like a daycare, like a list of people. Okay. You know what I'm saying, because there are like,
Well, we interviewed some of there. Nikki's even talking about if we're gonna pay all of that helps you.
let's see if Nancy. Right, oh, yeah. You know,
We met the lady, we met her.
Oh, thank you. Look, they give him a longer one.
So he.
Our thing originally was we didn't know how long. We didn't give them our chance to take our things away. We don't even go back and forth for a while.
Hey, Vicki, do you know anybody that does in-home daycare that take care of kids? I don't. Okay, I just helping him with Calvin. Like, I know Deb had, and I don't know if she has a helping. She lives right here on Central School Road. But I just did, you know, like sometimes you hear like 19 years. Yeah. I just know, sometimes you're like, oh, I know someone.
And it's even harder when.
Yes. His grandson. He has the guardianship of their grandson. Yeah. Patrick doesn't have any people he can introduce.
Patrick might know somebody.
I sent Patrick a message.
Do you know anybody that does in-home daycare for kids?
Yes. Besides you?
Besides you. No, I mean, like, that Chad can hire to take care of Calvin.
What we gave you,
Yeah, that
gave
was.
you line.
Yeah, that's what I sent you, and you sent me that. I gotta get it for Nikki.
It is, Susie, yes, they give you lots of different people. We have neighbors.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, he could,
Mikowski and, the last name, Black.
I know, my girlfriend Kat, and she does, I don't know if she has room for any more infants, like, she'll take one as one face of
Mary
that.
does it too.
But you need
find
some.
something steady because Nikki's never used all her sick time at work.
Okay.
But they don't, but a daycare is gonna be $1,300 a month for an infant. I mean, that's a house payment. So, but like.
But I mean, I can get with you, Patrick. I'll send you a message.
I just like, somebody's like, oh, I know somebody that's nobody. It's like, I'm gonna ask the gal I know that does it. Her kid just graduated from Central, but she
It's free by me, I'm sorry. I couldn't really.
No, but I think personally would know.
There's three by us.
Yes.
I know, I wish Mary did Mary that.
No, I understand.
She goes over there and she can only handle it.
Right.
One's enough to me.
Well, I mean, he's technically.
Right, but you don't want to make her.
He goes over there. He'll be over there. It's only for each time he goes to work at 9. I get off at 3:30. It's not like we leave him over there.
No. I get it when my daughter.
If I do it,
I just have my little before, it's like, she worked at the high school, we lived at the, she worked in the high school, so it was great, so she had done my son's age, and then her daughter was in kindergarten, and he was in infant, so I put the kids on school, and Kara went back today, I got her on the bus, and they live next door, and Mom was off at the school day, because she was secretary, so it just was still hard, a little bit of special time. I was like kind of urgent, but you're yes, you heard me say that.
Hey, I'm right there with you, friend.
My daughter just got 65.
As long as it doesn't matter what the hours are in, as long as you have 60 college credits, then you apply for a substitute teacher certificate with Missouri.
When you apply for it, is it like a test?
No.
Just a license?
Yeah.
That is
I
okay.
think they just need to verify that you have 60 college hours, and then you look your background check with Jesse, and then they say you're eligible.
Okay, I'm gonna tell her she wants to do it. And she's already got a license to be the pharmacy tech, so she's got her background.
We'll take her.
Because I was just curious, I don't know why I never thought of that.
If we would say probably like if we had applicants that had a teaching certificate, that we would prefer it, like we would prefer that if they could throw that. But it's not required.
Do we have anybody that's applied that's a teacher that might?
Get her substitute. Well, I thought you could take a course and something, you gotta get a license.
I'm like, are you guys
And she just got to
interview us?
she just got to shift the
Oh, is that, you asked them? Well, yeah, 'cause they were sitting, I know that, so I'm like, okay, you guys look like you're. No. But no, way older. Well, not way, but. I know. The ombre. It's called? I moved over here, I switched it up a bit.
No, am I in trouble?
What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Want water?
Right here, she switched places on.
I was wondering.
I know, I moved, sorry, I switched it up.
Younger.
There you go. Sorry, I switched it up. Good evening.
Oh, that's.
Sorry, we had a little bit of an extended break there, but we're gonna start with work session. We're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna let Mr. Supple talk to us first about vacation station and preschool tuition for 2021.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. We bring information to the board every year about the programs. The exhibits are somewhat standard, so a couple highlights that I would share with you. We do feel that it's important that programs continue to operate on a break-even basis, and so we try to incorporate into the tuition recommendations the costs that are necessary, the increases that are necessary to cover particularly salary increases. So this year, we were in an advantageous situation. We knew well ahead of time what the salary increases were going to be. We continue to struggle a little bit with our preschool program. The very factor that makes it excellent, which is the fact that we have certified teachers in our program, is the factor that makes us a little bit non-competitive with other programs because we pay our teachers much better than some other programs. So it gets to be a little bit difficult to remain competitive with the community programs and still offer the quality program that Francis Howell has been famous for. So we are making a recommendation to have a 2% increase for our preschool program and a 3% increase for vacation station. If you look at the first exhibit, it shows that we are projecting a deficit for fiscal year 21, but I will share with the board that On the left side of that page, you can see that we last year projected a deficit for fiscal year '20. And as I looked at the first 5 months of the fiscal year, where we had budgeted to have expenses exceed revenue in all but one of the first 5 months, the actual reverse has been true. We've had revenue exceed expenses, so we're on track to have a surplus in the program for fiscal year '20. So I feel very comfortable that this moderate level of tuition increase, which allows us to keep pace with the increases that we're giving our teaching and other staff, will allow us to remain competitive. And if we would run any sort of a deficit, we have had surplus in the tuition-based programs the last several years. And this is a good way for us to remain competitive, offer those quality programs, and not pass on a lot of additional cost to our parents. That's all I have to share.
Thank you, Mr. Supple.
If the board doesn't, I will say, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not trying to cut the conversation short. We do like to have the opportunity to advertise our rates pending board approval. Being out early with the information allows parents to make decisions early. So we don't want to, if we wait till January 16th, some of the other programs will have already advertised their tuition for the next year. So we have previously, with board's consensus, begun to advertise what the rates are next year with the proviso that it's pending board approval in January. And if you're okay with that, Mrs. Lane will go about providing flyers that show what our proposed increases are.
Yeah, Mr. Supple, I think, you talked about it specifically, but the quality of our programs, because of the certified staff, it kind of goes along with you get what you pay for. So we have a highly qualified staff that we need to make sure are compensated appropriately. So the children coming into these programs are also benefiting from that. So I don't have any concerns. Board, any questions, discussion? Mrs. Walker?
I just have a question. So I noticed that our preschool enrollment has decreased. Is that partially because the St. Charles facility opened up?
I think there are a couple of influencing factors. We have made some changes in our programming. So that there's a mix of preschool programs, 2 days and 3 days and full days and half days. And so you try to anticipate what parents are going to want, and sometimes you don't hit it exactly. So we're aware that the numbers are down a little bit, but we are making some changes in the offerings that are going to be available so that we can try to make the slots match what the parents want. So if you have a lot of parents who want a 3-day program and your 3-day slots are all filled, you tend to lose some numbers. And it's hard sometimes to anticipate exactly what people want, but both Meadows Parkway and Hackman are going to be trying some different approaches that we think over time will continue to build the enrollment in those programs.
I would also add that we're seeing early childhood centers pop up on every corner. And so I think that our competition has increased over the course of the past few years, and that is a challenge with our enrollment. So I think that's another part of it.
So I guess related to the staffing isn't really changing, or we're adding a couple people, I think. But it's because I'm assuming that we're just kind of shifting around because Vacation Station enrollment is growing while the early childhood is deep. So we're just going to move staff around. Is that how we're going to?
Right, there are no major changes in early childhood staffing at this time. We're still looking at some things when it comes to enrollment, so if there are any changes, we'll bring those to you in January. But we anticipate that will be status quo in early childhood. When it comes to Vacation Station, there are some adds. There, just as enrollment comes, it's just a small increase for making sure that we have the ratios correctly.
So I'm leaving in case you haven't heard, but I do have a recommendation regarding this topic next year. There was a time when this was a contentious matter in our district, and it is no longer. So for several years in a row, we have added this to a workshop. I don't believe that's necessary moving forward. I would add it next year to either the consent agenda or under financial management. I don't think we need to bring it twice. So we're bringing it this time, we'll bring it next time. I don't think that's necessary anymore. It will help our programs to be more efficient moving forward.
Doesn't look like there's any concern with that.
So make that note, Laura.
Right. Board, any other questions or discussion? Thank you very much. All right. Next on our work session agenda, we have strategies to reduce our substitute teacher no-fills. Ms. Simpkins.
Thank you. So I'm here today just to share with you some of the strategies that we have implemented over the last several years. You hear the stress that is caused in our buildings when we have a teacher that is absent and we are not able to fill that position with a substitute. So for our purposes today, a no-fill is when a teacher is absent and has requested a substitute teacher through our absence management system, and through that system we're not able to find a substitute. So we consider that a no-fill. And some of the reasons what is causing this problem, one is that unemployment is low in our area. It's at record lows across St. Charles County area. So those that want a job have a job, and they're working in full-time positions. They're not looking for those temporary positions that kind of gets them through to the next job. The perception of the work, it's a tough job to go into a classroom where you don't have relationships built with kids. You feel a little isolated, the work is difficult. So there's a perception that the work is difficult or that I might not be qualified to go into a classroom and be a substitute teacher, are all some of the reasons that we're seeing this problem. Another reason, and we'll talk about it a little bit here soon, is the teacher shortage. So gone are the days where teachers would graduate from college and then spend a year substituting because they couldn't find that full-time job. Now teachers are graduating from college and they're moving right into their teaching position, so you don't have this large pool of recent graduates that are substituting looking for that foot in the door to become a teacher. So we know that no-fills cause a lot of stress in our buildings. It starts with our administrative assistants in the morning just trying everything they can to find substitutes, to move people around, starting their day off just looking to fill those positions. We're pulling staff members from the work that they were really hired to do, whether that's a special teacher, a gifted teacher, a reading teacher to cover a classroom, or maybe it's a paraprofessional that is supposed to be doing some reading interventions or working individually with students. They're being pulled from their work. We're paying teachers on plan time to cover some of those classes, and we're causing some burnout because teachers aren't getting to do the work that they planned to do, or paras aren't getting getting time to do the work that they needed to do. So we really started addressing this problem back in the 15-16 school year, and I'm just going to share with you some of the things that we've tried to do. So even though our fill rate is really high, it is a celebration for us. When you look at this problem across the county, across the state, and across the nation, we're filling over 96% of the positions that we need to fill with substitutes. So we do have a high fill rate, but we know that every single no-fill causes some struggles. So we watch the average number of no-fills per day, and you can see from the chart we kept seeing an increase. But last year we did see a decrease, and I think it is because of some of the strategies that we have implemented. I don't think there's one that really was the magic bullet that fixed the problem, but I think each and every one of them added to some of our success. So I'll share the strategies with you. The first, we started to collect data and do some research. So STD.org was founded as the Substitute Teaching Institute at Utah State University. And they provide research-based training materials and services designed to improve student achievement when students are taught by subs. So they did a national fill rate academy. They offered several monthly webinars on best practices around recruiting, retention, and training substitutes. So we participated in those to see what we could learn from a different organization and just hear what was best practice. We found a lot of what they had to offer we already had implemented in Francis Howell, but did learn a couple of little tricks and tips along the way. Through this organization, they did a national survey of substitutes. They did survey our substitutes as well as our administrators, and we did get some information from that about why substitute teachers are selecting Francis Howell to sub in. and maybe what some of their frustrations were. And we found that it was very similar to some of the national research that is out there. So I feel a connection to the district. It's close to home. I like the flexibility. But again, some of the frustrations, just the work or not feeling qualified, or maybe they've had a bad experience subbing and they didn't want to come back. The 2017 Hanover research was a great place for us to get some information. They did a study asking people why they substitute, and many of them said it's because of the flexibility. They like to just sub a couple of days a week. So again, we don't have those folks that are wanting to sub every single day. They want to sub a couple of days a week, or they like kids, or they have a passion for teaching. But some of their frustrations throughout this study was the pay. They didn't feel like it was commensurate with the work that they were doing. The late notice, so I'm not getting called into work until early in the morning or the night before, and that can be very frustrating if I'm really looking for some steady work. And then I can't be a full-time substitute, so I have a second job, and then I'm not able to sub as much as I want because I have some conflict with my second job. What I thought was interesting in this study is 15 years ago, 75% of the people in the substitute pool were certified teachers working as substitutes, and now today 80% of the people in the substitute pool are non-certified folks. So the profile of a substitute is very, very different. In 2003, it were those new graduates that were between the ages of 23 to 26 that were looking to get their foot in the door. And now our substitutes are stay-at-home parents. They're about 43 to 44 years old, and they're just looking for some flexibility and to work here and there. So a big difference in what's available to us. When we did some research of our own district, this is just an example of a chart that we started tracking the number of days, which day of the week we might have no-fills, how many release days we had, and what levels or what areas we were starting to see the no-fills in. And what we found at that time was that special education and PE were areas where we were starting to struggle. So one of the first things we looked at was just providing some training to our substitutes around special education. We offered a higher pay, a daily rate of pay if you took the training and subbed in special education classes, just to try to respond to some of the research that we saw. We also realized at the time we were not allowing release days on Mondays or Fridays, and we weren't experiencing as many no-fills on Mondays as we expected. So we opened up that release calendar and allowed teachers release Monday through Thursday, kind of spreading out the needs for subs to 4 days instead of 3 to see if we could fill some more of those positions. So just one of the ways that we tried to react to that. Next, we started really monitoring teacher release. So we know that we create some of the problem when we pull teachers out of the classroom to do other very important work for the district, whether that's curriculum writing, getting specialized professional development, maybe it's reviewing data with their team or working with their PLC. And so we created a release calendar so that we could track kind of which teachers were out on which days. And we did determine some parameters. We limited the number of teachers that could be released per day. And we talked about the reasons that we were releasing teachers. We centralized that approval process through the academic department so we could really look at the reasons why teachers needed that release, and we were approving the most important release days. And then we did limit the teacher release days on high absence days. So Fridays are a tough day, so we don't allow as much release on Fridays. And then days like the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we know that we have some absences on those days, so we started to really restrict the release that was happening on those days. We also reduced the overall number of release days that we allowed, and we continue to have conversations around that. We have a group that will be talking this year just about how we might be able to do some of that work differently, just thinking outside of the box instead of pulling teachers out of the classroom. How might we be able to offer stipends or additional work days so that teachers don't have to be pulled from their classroom when they're working with students? So that they can do some of that work. When you look at the calendar of 185 days, and 169 of them are student work days, 6 are professional development days, teacher work days, there's not a lot of opportunity for teachers to do the other important work that they need to do. So we really need to look at, are there some other options that we can brainstorm so that we aren't part of the problem pulling teachers out of the classroom. So monitoring teacher release is important. We really focused on recruiting and hiring over the last several years. We've been advertising substitute teacher openings in ways that you didn't used to do in education. So whether that was social media or recruiting for substitute teachers at job fairs, that's new to us in the last couple of years. We didn't have to do that before. We used to hire once a year. Every summer, we'd hire a pool of substitute teachers and we would be good for the year. Slowly we moved to hiring every semester, then we started every quarter, now we're hiring every month. And so we try to refresh that pool of substitute teachers, hiring anywhere from 20 to 30 brand new substitutes each month in a new hire meeting to try to just keep that pool fresh. When you think about the Hanover report and thinking about that profile of a substitute, we added permanent substitutes last year. First, we started with 6 part-time substitutes, if you remember that, and then we quickly came to you and said, can we please make them full-time? And so we really do something different than some of our other districts. We didn't just put the substitutes in the pool or give them to the buildings, but we hold on to them here at district office until the very last minute. So at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, Karen looks to see where those no-fills have fallen and then kind of sends out the substitutes so they don't just get wrapped up into the process of filling positions early on. So they have been extremely helpful and have really added to the quality of the substitute that we are able to provide. We also have been talking with local colleges and universities about their student-teacher programs. So the colleges and universities realize that the substitute problem is out there, and they have changed some of their programs to allow their students more flexibility when it comes to substitute teaching. So Mark Delaney and I went out and visited each of the colleges and universities in the area that we had a relationship with and presented to our administrators on how they might better utilize those programs within their building to have some additional substitute support. Next, we focused on training our substitutes. So you heard the subs say, I don't feel qualified. I don't know that I can walk into this classroom and do a great job. I don't know what the technology is like. What the heck is a smartboard? So we really spent some time developing some better training opportunities for our substitutes. When they come in for substitute orientation, we have district teachers and stakeholders that come in and really provide some training to our brand new substitutes. They focus on the areas that you see there on the screen. We also have some special education focus. And then each summer, Karen Brady does a great job of just realizing what is she hearing throughout the year that our substitutes are struggling with, and we put on some optional training in the summer. We do pay those substitutes to come in the summer if they'd like and participate in some of that training that she offers each year, just to try to help them feel better about working in Francis Howell versus some of the other districts that are out there. We have been working to really share the opportunities for work. So maintaining our absence management system is important. Making sure that it's up to date, it's working well. Karen does a great job with that. She started a substitute office Twitter account. She started a Facebook page, and she had some text groups so that she could quickly get information out to our substitutes when we had some no-fills, and just trying to get the word out that there were opportunities here. We also advertise to all of our substitute teachers the apps that are available with push notifications when work gets added to our system. So what we have noticed is our substitutes are really arranging their work well in advance. They're not sitting by that phone at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for us to call and say, hey, do you want to come to work today? Everything is electronic. It's within a computerized system. So a week out, 2 days out, they're getting online, they're checking to see what jobs are available, and they're scheduling themselves for work well in advance. They like that opportunity to get that scheduled. So those last minute absences, when we have teachers that wake up with a fever or vomiting, those are the difficult absences that we have to fill because we don't have those substitutes that are just waiting by the phone for work. But these apps with these push notifications are helpful. But our subs do have to pay a monthly fee to have these apps. It's $5 to $7 a month, I think, for some of the apps. Now, the Jobulator is part of our Frontline Central system, and that one does come free. But I don't know that the push notifications are as great with that one as it is with the sub-alert. But as soon as we enter a job, it buzzes on your phone, and you have the opportunity to grab it if you want to. So that does help us get the word out when we have those openings. We also focused on substitute retention. So again, Karen Brady did a great job just updating the website. There is a substitute teacher page that she provides some resources, some training manuals, just some things that they can go to. She also uses that site to advertise long-term sub opportunities. We started looking at substitute appreciation. Karen visited every building with a little thank you to welcome the subs. Good morning, how are you? Thanks for being here, with a little candy bar, a little treat that just said we appreciate that you chose Francis Howell today. And we do some small gifts at annual training. A badge is really important to our substitutes, so we did a few of those, and they were super excited when they were the winner of the badge. So just making them feel appreciated and valued here in Francis Howell. And then we did some substitute recognition. If you'll remember, last year we had a board recognition of substitute teachers, and we selected a substitute of the year, just trying to recognize the hard work that they do each year. We focused on pay. We looked at pay over the course of the last several years. Each year we look and monitor our benchmark district's daily rate and try to stay either equal to or competitive with those in the area. What I will tell you is this year I think my strategy will be to wait and not bring that pay recommendation to you until I know that every other district has set their pay schedule first. We match them, and then lo and behold, they're up another $5 or $10, and we're falling behind again. So I think we'll wait just a little bit and maybe bring that to you a little bit later than what we've normally done to see if that will make a difference this year. We do offer our Francis Howell retirees a higher rate of pay if they come back and work, and of course we have the RDIP program where they can come back for a reduction in their insurance. And then we offer $15 to our substitutes who have to work on their plan time. So they have an opportunity to earn additional $15 per day if they work on their plan time. And then this year, our strategy was not to increase the overall pay, but to do progressive pay increases. So we have 4 levels of substitutes. They start at $95 per day. If they work 30 days within a quarter, they get to bump up to $105 a day. If they work 30 days that second quarter, it goes to $110, up to $125 in the fourth quarter. So just hoping that would incentivize those substitutes who are maybe working for Fort Zumwalt and Francis Howell to come here, to work here. So we did see after first quarter about 17-ish substitutes reach that second level. So we're hoping as that word goes out that will continue to help us as well. The next was just getting our buildings to help us, just asking them to really focus on what is the work climate like for substitutes in your building. Are they welcomed when they enter the door? Do they have the resources that they need? If they have a question or a problem, do they have a buddy teacher that they can go to? Are we checking in with them throughout the day? Do they have someone that they can sit with and have lunch with just so that they feel a part of the building? And then we asked our buildings to create a rotating no-fill plan. So if there are some positions that go unfilled in their building, that they have a plan, that they're not calling on the same teacher to work on their plan time every time, or pulling the same para every day to work in a different role. So some sort of a rotating schedule. And that's where you hear some of the frustration from our staff is that part of that plan. But we have to have some supervision and coverage in those classrooms, and so that's kind of how we're filling those no-fills when they happen. We also looked at researching staffing companies. So there are many services. You might remember Kelly Temp Services for accounting. Well, Kelly has an educational staffing service, and they will take over the recruiting, the hiring, and the placement of our substitutes. There are also several others. And we did do some research with them. They boast a upper 90% fill rate, which we are right at around 96%. So we've not yet made that jump. We would still, utilizing one of these staffing agencies, say Francis Howell wants to pay our substitutes $95 per day, but then they would add on their fee, and so we might end up paying $130 a day for a substitute, but the substitute would only receive $95. That rest of that fee would go to the staffing agency. So we've not yet felt like we needed to do that. We like that our substitutes feel like they're employees of Francis Howell and that they're connected, but it's definitely an option. A couple of our benchmark districts have gone to these companies. Some love it, and some say they really haven't seen a significant increase in their subfills. They're still at that mid to high 90 range, mid range of 90% in filling their subs. So we also want to look at our teacher absences. We track the number of release days, and we track the number of sick days that our teachers are utilizing throughout the year. And then we look at the average daily attendance. And that average daily attendance does include the release days and the sick days. So part of that issue, as I said before, is we create ourselves. We are pulling teachers out of the classroom to do some of that other important work. But we know that there is an increase in the use of sick days as you look across the years. And so that's something that I think we can have some conversation around and talk about how we might incentivize our staff to come to work on a regular basis. So some things that we can consider moving forward. To continue studying how we do our work and looking at those release days as we've talked about. In the staffing plan, when we talk about that here in just a moment, you'll see that we have asked to increase the number of permanent substitutes from 6 to 12. Again, it's because we know that substitutes want to have that planned work. They don't like the instability of not knowing when I'm going to work. And so our permanent substitutes know that they can count on working every single day. The pay is a little bit higher. We pay the minimum teacher salary for our substitutes, and they get some benefits and retirement and paid holidays, so they feel a little more connected and there's some more benefit to those positions. So when you look at the paid holidays and the number of work days, they're at about $138 per day. So again, when you look at that Hanover report and they're frustrated with the pay, this increases that a little bit for those folks that are here on a regular basis. And the quality of the substitute is better. They get to know our systems and our procedures and build some relationships in the district, which overall is better for kids. So something we can consider there. Considering teacher attendance, we can think of some perfect attendance incentives, or maybe not perfect attendance, but setting an attendance goal. It's difficult to ask teachers to be here every single day. We know illness happens, we know kids get sick, and so maybe we can talk about setting some kind of an attendance goal. If you match that goal, there could be an incentive. We could consider things like a more immediate buyback program for sick days that aren't used. And I think we need to look at our leave policies. We've been a little more flexible with our personal leave throughout the course of the last couple of years, and that's something that maybe we could look at and tighten up on. Again, we could look at increasing the daily rate of pay above our benchmarks, which is why that strategy of coming to you a little bit later might be helpful, so that we can see where our other outlying districts will land before we set that rate of pay. And one suggestion from our PTOs was to consider offering a vacation station discount for the folks that substitute in Francis House, so that maybe they would not have to pay the higher drop-in rate, but maybe have a regular rate of tuition as they that would allow them to have some reasonable daycare so that they could substitute in the district. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have about the different strategies that we've used to try to be sure we're filling all of our substitute positions.
Mr. Lane?
Thank you. Our full-time subs, are they certified teachers?
They're substitute certified. They're not required to have teaching certificates.
So, okay. So that's no. Some are, some not. Okay, thank you. Does this attendance also reflect support staff, or is it just
This
our
is just
certified?
teachers.
Just certified.
Mhm.
And does this include personal days?
Yes, because teachers receive 11 sick days, 3 of which can be used for personal reasons. So they don't get a bank of sick and a bank of personal.
Okay.
So that's the same bank of days, and they can use up to 3 days for personal reasons, which would be something like, I need to close on my home, or I have a repair coming, business that you have to do between the hours of 8 to 5. It's not, I want to take a personal day to go on a vacation, I want to take a personal day to go Christmas shopping. That's not the intention of those days.
Great, okay, thank you.
Ms. Simpkins, can you explain this teacher absence report to me a little bit, because I'm kind of confused. When it says 980 sick days, that doesn't mean, does that mean 980 people were out sick the whole month of August?
Yes. We had 980 sick days absence, those were the absences, and then 341 release days. So that also includes things like family medical leave. So if you have maternity leaves, long-term illnesses, so some of that would be a sick day, but it's not designated one versus the other. And there are about, this report, we had, in 1819, let me say that, we had 1,263 teachers that we were watching to collect that data. That was the number that we used. And that came from our financial software. At the beginning of the year, we kind of pull what's the list of certified teachers, what's that number, and then we're consistent with that number as we look at the percentage of average daily attendance.
So how does this reflect into the buildings? Are we seeing like one building, let's just say, is there a building that has a lot more no fills than another building? I know we have 6 permanent subs, but like, are we seeing, for whatever reason, it's really hard to find people at Central Elementary versus Fairmont or
We
whatever?
did track that for some time, and we didn't find a significant difference from one building to another. Now, there's sometimes we'll hear some comments like, oh, we're hearing this particular sub doesn't like to go to this particular building. We do follow up on those to be sure that there's not a concern or an issue. If we do hear of something, we're calling the building like, hey, we want you to know what substitutes are saying or what supports they don't feel like they have so that we can rectify that quickly. But we did not see, one area, one building where we were really struggling with no fills.
Are you seeing the same with the levels, the different levels? I mean, for elementary versus middle
Yes.
versus high
Yes.
school, are we seeing the same?
There are substitutes. I think that's the benefit of being a substitute is they come and they tell us like, I really only want to work at the high school level. Okay. I really only want to work on the north side of the district. Okay. I really only want to work on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I only want to work on these 5 buildings. I mean, they can accept or decline the work, so they're going to do that just based on what their preferences are.
Okay.
Now, that's
Thank you.
different for our permanent subs, though. In order to take that job, you have to be willing to go wherever we send you, wherever we need you. You don't get to pick.
The app that they're paying for,
Yes, the Jobulator and the SubAlert.
so do you think that that would be an enticement if, say somebody subs 3 days out of the month, we pay for the $5 app for them?
We did think about that and talk a lot about that. The problem is that they're going to use that same app for every district that they substitute in. So
Okay.
I can't limit, I can pay for it, but I can't limit it to say, only send them Francis Howell jobs. So now they can sign up on that app and say, I work in Rockwood, Fort Zumwalt, Francis Howell, Wentzville, and now I'm paying for them to get push notifications from all of the districts. So there's a 30-day free trial that we push, like use it, see if you like it, but we have not taken that step to pay for the app for them.
And then, the other thing I was thinking with the PTO, they talked about a discounted rate for vacation station. I don't know how big of a financial impact that would even have on the district because we're talking probably just a few kids throughout the whole district. And I wonder if that would really be a good way for us to get some of the parents that are at home during the day. I mean, that's what I've heard from different people in the elementary level is, I gotta get my kid to school. So I can't go sub at high school because I gotta get my kid to school, they go to school later. But if I could do vacation station, so what do we need to do to make that happen?
It was just an idea that was recently brought to us, so we just haven't had the opportunity to have the conversation and talk about it, but we'll absolutely do that as part of our strategies.
I think we have to look at the financial impact.
Yeah.
Take a look.
So I want to make sure that I'm reading the chart right as well. I'm like Janet, I had a couple questions. So I think if I'm reading it right though, if this is per month and we have anywhere from 1,400 to 2,500 people out per month, that's what, 70 to 120 a day, a working day?
Yeah.
It's more.
Okay, even more.
Between release and sick, it approaches between 150 and 200 a day.
And that's not including support staff, that's just certified.
This is just teachers, yes. And we do track, what we've been watching on the certified side is the no-fill rate for paraprofessionals. We really struggle with that. I mean, we're struggling right now just filling our paraprofessional positions because of the unemployment rate and so forth. But when it comes to those positions, our fill rate for our paraprofessionals is probably in the 50%. So we, for instance, had 12 absences. We were only able to fill 6 with substitute paras. But we're always going to try to fill the teacher absences first before we fill those para absences, because we have to have an adult in the classroom with those kiddos. That's our first priority.
I don't know if there's going to be any further questions, but I just want to say that Lisa and Karen have done an outstanding job. I would challenge anybody to find a district that has done more or is planning on doing more to address their no-fill rates than Francis Hall has. And so I want to commend her. It hasn't been a short 1 month, let's address our no-fills. This has been ongoing work that the two of them are constantly working on, because they understand the stress level of what one no-fill causes in a building. Having said that, our no-fill rate, because of the strategies Lisa has put in place, is higher than most districts. So again, would challenge somebody to find a district that has as low of a no-fill rate as we do. So it is a crisis in the building on that day when we have nobody to fill a classroom. But I don't know that we could do anything more about it other than the things Lisa has planned on working on a continuous basis. So just want to thank her for all the work. It's not that we don't hear the stress about the no-fills, and it certainly is not that we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, I was excited that you articulated more about how once we do have a substitute come in and join our family, that we're giving them some training and some preparation. So I'll flash back to when I was 22 and I walked in and did my first substitute job without any training and didn't know where the building was, and got there and just in time to walk into a classroom. And I was 22 years old without any preparation. So to understand that fear that someone may have, I do. So I'm very excited that we take the time to offer some training over the summer, to offer them some support as they take on the challenge, because it is also very rewarding. So thank you for articulating that. Mr. Hain.
A couple of things. I know these are things that we could consider, but which of these are we considering? Are we considering all those, or I know you said that we're going to be increasing the number of permanent subs, but I mean, which of these are like?
So Dr. Hoban is working with a group to talk about and just brainstorm how we might do our work differently, and looking at those release days. You'll see in the staffing plan that we are recommending an increase in the number of permanent substitutes. So that's one thing I put as consider, because you haven't approved the staffing plan yet. The second is the increase in the daily rate above our benchmarks. So we have always tried to be right on target. If Zumwalt and Wentzville are paying $95, we're at $95. And so I think our strategy this year will be let's really wait and see where they land. If they're at 100, we went to 95 because that's where they were, and lo and behold, they jumped up to 100 or 105, or I think even in Pattonville, they're at like $125 a day. So some of those districts have really increased their pay for their substitutes. So we'd like to see where they land for the 2021 school year before we bring a recommendation to you as to what that hour or that daily rate would be. And we just haven't had the opportunity yet to have the conversations about DS, and so we'll talk with Susie Lane and look at that budget and see kind of if that's even some sort of an option that we could provide. And then when we start to talk about teacher attendance, I think some of those things will probably need to be negotiated items as we look at our leave policies, or we talk about changing our sick buyback programs. Right now, you can accumulate up to 100 sick days, and when you retire, we pay $75 for 75 days. And so are there some different things that we can do, or are there some incentives that we can put in place that would be a little bit more immediate, that would encourage teachers to maybe come to work when they could? Schedule their doctor's appointments on different days, things of that nature maybe.
And I guess 16% of our workforce is out every single day. That just seems ridiculous.
Well, remember, it's not, you're counting some of the release days, and so I would say probably sick day wise, it's probably 9% is where we're at, 9 to 10%. So it definitely is something we need to talk about. As we talk about all of the other things, it's not just one thing, but I think we have to talk about both sides. How we do our work differently with the release days, how we encourage our staff to come to work on a regular basis. We know that our teachers are stressed. It's a tough job. You hear that often about just the work has changed, the kids are different, the stress is high. And so, we don't want teachers to be burned out, and if they're not feeling mentally prepared to come into the classroom, it's possible that that's why you see an increase in those days being used. And so how do we strategize around some of those things? And that's what our strategic plan is looking at, that work-life integration, and how do we promote self-care to our teachers? And I think that's something that, as we talk about the staffing plan, just why sometimes we're asking for that additional support in our buildings. Graphs and numbers are important when you're looking at the staffing plan, and we haven't come to you with all of the needs that we hear across the building. But as we take away staff or don't provide them the supports that they need, they get stressed and they get burnt out, and they have all that work on them. And I think that's some of the reasons why they feel like they have to take those days off to just breathe. You hear stories of teachers taking a sick day so that they can catch up on their grading. Or you hear teachers, taking a sick day so they can get some planning done because they haven't been able to do that. I don't know how often that happens, but it's sure things that we hear. And so are we providing them all of the time and the opportunity to get the work that they need to get done. So I think those are some of the things we need to look at as a whole organization as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? It's a lot of information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's still the Lisa show. Take a drink. Next on our work session agenda is our 2020-2021 staffing proposal.
Say that 5 times fast.
No, thank you. Mrs. Simpkins.
Okay. So I appreciate you giving me the time to share with you the recommended staffing plan for the 2020-2021 school year. I am going to share with you that we're going to do things just a little bit differently this year. One of the things that we heard as we start to prepare the staffing plan, Mark Delaney and I go out to each and every single building, and we sit down for over an hour with the administrative teams of each of our buildings to really understand their current reality, what their needs are, what their wants are. And one of the things that we heard throughout all the levels, and it's nothing new to you, is that behaviors, they're struggling with dealing with behaviors. And you have asked us to present to you a work session in January. So we are working on that. And we didn't want to rush any sort of a plan to provide supports to the buildings. So Dr. Hendricks-Harris and Dr. Hoven are working with our administrators, with our academic team, with other stakeholders, just to decide how best to support our buildings when it comes to the behaviors that they're seeing in the building. So it was especially important for us as we brought this staffing plan forward to you. We started with an intent to have a status quo staffing plan and tried very hard to do that, knowing that it's very possible we could need to come to you for some supports when it comes to addressing behaviors in students. So as they continue to do that work, it is very possible in January or February that we would come to you with any staffing needs to support that plan. So we wanted to bring this plan to you tonight as part of our normal process, but we will bring a second plan to you if that's necessary as they do that work to talk about behaviors. So we started the staffing plan process back in October. We got direction, talked with the executive cabinet, Mark and I, and again, the direction was stay status quo as much as possible. We know that every staff member that we ask from the board has a financial impact. And so financially, we try very hard to bring you a status quo staffing plan. But when you're in those meetings and you're sitting there with those administrators and hearing the needs of their staff and their teachers, and you're not just looking at a chart with numbers on a computer, but you're hearing the human need and what they're dealing with on a regular basis, sometimes that's difficult to just come forward with a status quo staffing plan. Many of the needs that we have heard the last several years have not been brought to you in a staffing plan. because we know that there is a financial impact. So those needs, those pressing needs continue to bubble up, and I think that's partly why you hear we're struggling with behaviors, we don't have the supports for behaviors, because we have not addressed some of the concerns that we've heard throughout the course of the year. So after that, we shared the initial plan with Cabinet. Full Cabinet had an opportunity to pick it apart and share with us what their concerns were. We shared with each principals, and then we also shared the plan with leadership from our employee groups before bringing it to you tonight. We always talk a little bit about contingency staffing. Each year, we ask the board to approve some contingency staffing in the plan. It's positions that are held off to the side not to be used unless they are needed. And we watch and offer that contingency to our buildings only if we feel like there's no other choice. And so if we use the contingency, it is included in the beginning balances on the memo that you saw on board docs. If the contingency was not used, it is eliminated. So if we asked for 6 positions and only used 5, you would see the 5 carried forward to the new year, but the 1 would not be. The last couple of years, we have used the majority of our contingency on the certified side. But we'll be very careful in how we utilize contingency as we move forward. We don't ask for a whole lot, but it's difficult when we get those enrollment projections and they come in just a little bit higher than what we expected. Sometimes we get to those high class sizes and have to do something to support those buildings. So we'll break it down into the 3 major areas, and we'll start with the certified staff. So we take the enrollment projections from the capacity team, and we look at the enrollment projections by section, by building. So we don't look at the overall enrollment, but we look at Henderson's kindergarten is expected to have 135 students, and Fairmont's 5th grade is expected to have X. And then we look at how many teachers it would take to get us to the desired class size. And so we really play with those numbers and by section, by building when it comes to elementary. So we do some reallocating. We might take a teacher away from one building and add it to another because we have the flexibility to do that and keep those class sizes at that midpoint. And then after we do that, we try not to add staff, but there are some sections that might have been higher than what we are accustomed to here in Francis Howell, and so we may have to add some staff. So after reallocating all of our FTEs, on the certified side, there is an addition of 4 elementary classroom teachers. That keeps our class sizes consistent to what we are accustomed to here in Francis Howell, and I'll share those with you here in the next slide. We are also requesting the addition of a technology content leader. So at one time, we had 3 technology content leads in the Francis Howell School District. We did reduce that to 1 position, and we have had 1 person doing that work for the last several years. And we know that while she does an amazing job and is highly thought of, she's not even able to focus on some of the important work that we want her to focus on because of the duties and responsibilities that she has. She supports all of teachers district-wide when it comes to technology, and you can imagine how much technology has changed just over the course of the years. We also are bringing forward the learning management system, which will require a lot of support for our teachers, and so we're asking to add that technology content lead position so that there will be 2 positions that can support the technology needs of our teachers across the district. So these are the proposed class sizes in elementary. Our December 2019 average is there, and then our proposed class sizes for 2021. And then I share with you kind of what MSIP 6 would share as the desirable class size. So MSIP 6 would say that we should have 17 students in a kindergarten classroom, and our staffing plan proposes 19.4. The midpoint is 21, and the maximum is 25. And so again, as we are staffing and we are looking at each individual section across the district, we're trying to hit that midpoint without going over. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes we go just a little bit over. And we also watch the equity across the district. So if class sizes in 5th grade are just slightly over the midpoint in most areas, I'm not going to add staff to all of them to get them below the midpoint because I know we don't have the resources to do that. So we really try to aim at that midpoint, trying to, across the district, to stay consistent. So the averages are a little bit deceiving. we will have class sections that will range from 18 to 27 in a classroom. So there will be some 5th grade classes that will have 27 students in them, which we know those are big kids and it can be difficult, but the midpoint's 26, that's as close as we could get without going too high over. And that does mean that we'll have some class sizes that will be at 18. So we have both ranges, but on average, you'll see the class sizes that are there for elementary. The middle school and high school levels are a little bit harder to determine or to project at this point in the process. When we create the staffing plan, what we look at is the student to classroom teacher ratio, and we try to stay consistent across the middle schools and the high schools. So this plan calls for an average at high school of one student, one teacher to every 21.65 students. And at middle school, it's one teacher to every 19.85 students. And while that's deceiving, that's not going to be our class sizes. We don't know what students are going to select when they go through their course enrollment. But we feel like at this level of staffing, we can keep the class sizes at the desired midpoint or within the MSIP range. So when you're looking at grades 7 through 12, the desirable range is 25 and the max is 33. So at the level of staffing that we have, we feel like our middle schools and our high schools will be able to do that. And then as they enroll their students, I think that's probably where our contingency gets used the most is middle school and high school, because they see students enrolling in courses and they need different staffing across different courses, and so that's sometimes where we might have to use some contingency to provide some support. Early childhood, really no changes in the overall FTE. When it comes to early childhood, we did reallocate a vacant speech and language pathologist position to become a classroom teacher. So again, we look for ways to reallocate staffing before just adding positions. We'll watch enrollment in early childhood. If we see a slight reduction in enrollment, it's possible that we could come back in January or in the future with some changes, but we're at this point projecting it to be status quo. So let's move over to support staff. We are recommending an overall increase of 8.31 FTEs. Now, I'll remind you, a 1.0 is not a head. It's not 1 for 1. We utilize a calculation to compare a part-time person to a full-time person. So a head could be a 0.64 or a 0.53 if they're working less than 260 days or less than 8 hours a day. They won't be a 1.0. It's a very different system that maybe one day we'll get to change. But so we are reallocating and adding staffing to maintenance and grounds. And so by reallocating and adding, we will be increasing our grounds crew by 2 positions. We struggle to get the grass cut when there's a heavy rain season. We are very understaffed in that department. So last year, they even had to contract out the work, grass cutting and some of that sort of thing to just keep up with the requirements around the district. So we think that this will be able to allow the department to provide some better customer service around the district to our buildings by adding 2 groundsmen. We're also asking for an additional custodian. Right now we have a custodian that is leaving How High to do some work over at the DLC and at Union, spending a couple of hours each day over there. And we had to do a reduction in custodial staffing at Meadows Parkway. They are our largest of the 3 early childhood sites. And so by adding 1 position, we can provide some support to Meadows Parkway based on the square footage so that the custodians are cleaning the same square footage as others throughout the district, and relieve some support so that the Union and DLC building can have some constant custodial support at that building. So by adding that 1 position, we're able to do that. We are requesting 3 cafeteria aides, 1 at each high school. We will not fill these positions right away, but our high schools are considering a change in their lunch hour, the power hour lunch, and they're working on what that might look like in their high schools. If they move forward with that plan, these additional cafeteria aides will provide some supervision as students have a little more flexibility with their lunch period. So we'll hold on to those positions until we're sure that the plan moves forward. It's still under research, it's still under development, but we wanted to be sure that that was included in the plan should that move forward. We're asking to add the permanent substitutes. I won't go through all the detail of that since we just talked about that. And then we're asking for one additional bus driver. When we started the transportation department, we had 2 bus drivers who were also fueling buses. So they were half bus driver, half fueler. What we're finding is that plan isn't working very well. We're struggling to get the buses fueled when we need them to be fueled. So by adding 1 bus driver, we'll have a full-time fueler that can be dedicated to fueling the buses and having them ready to go when they need to. Tuition-based program, we have some minimal increases in staffing. Our parent educator program has a slight increase in our FTE so that we can continue to provide the same level of support to our families. The national program has added some different requirements, and so we just want to be able to continue to provide the same service. When we add those requirements in, it takes time away from families for the parent educators to do that additional work. So by increasing the FTE, we'll be able to still service the same amount of families. And then we have a slight increase in vacation station, just as enrollment increases. We want to be sure we have the right number of facilitators available for safety reasons as we work through that. So overall, certified staffing, there will be an increase of 5 FTEs. We use the average teacher salary plus the cost of benefits to give you an approximate salary budget increase of $406,480. No changes in early childhood. In support staff, the increase in staffing, we estimate that cost to be $281,974. And then the tuition-based staffing, the approximate increase there would all be paid for by tuition, so that would not affect our salary budget that we have for K-12. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So, Ms. Simpkins, I had one, and it's just a thought. As you look at adding the additional cafeteria aides and making sure we are hiring and maintaining bus drivers, is there any opportunity, and it's just a random thought, bus driver in the morning, cafeteria aide, bus driver in the
So Mark
afternoon?
and I have some plan to, we have a retreat planned in January to talk about that very thing, how that might look. We were a little nervous in the very beginning to combine positions without knowing exactly how many hours our drivers were working and what their routes were looking like, and we really just needed to let transportation figure all that good stuff out as they took on heritage transportation and some of those things. So we're feeling like we have enough information that we could really talk about allowing our bus drivers to come in as cafeteria aides or recess paras or substitute custodians or substitute teachers if they're qualified. So our plan is to have some brainstorming and some conversation around what that might look like. We just want to be careful that we're not going over 40 hours a week or pushing into some other benefits that maybe we didn't intend. So we just need to really work through what all of that will look like. But that is our plan, to start having those conversations in January.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Lang?
Are we concerned at all that our class sizes are above the desirable range? Does it concern us at all, or?
I think when you compare us to other benchmark districts, our class sizes are in a good place when you compare us to some of our benchmarks. I think, if you talk to our stakeholders that, the smaller the class size, the more ability a teacher has to individualize instruction and take care of needs. But that's a big part of our financial situation and our budget, and so we try to be very cautious of that.
I'll just share that a neighboring district had looked at as part of their strategic planning getting to the desirable, and the cost magnified throughout the district by the number of employees and the number of building was well beyond what a district could afford. So part of this is a financial situation. Would we love to run the class sizes that are desirable? Absolutely. I just don't know that that's practical at this point.
Thank you.
Mrs. Walker?
So our early childhood enrollment dropped, but we didn't decrease staffing there. So I'm curious about that because it was about a 10% enrollment drop.
I think we might have some changes moving forward in January as we bring back the staffing plan for your vote. We'll be looking at some of those things as we've watched enrollment and as we started to make some plans, we might see a slight reduction. And I'll bring those updates to you in January.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions? Conversation?
As Lisa said, we are anticipating a couple tweaks to this plan, but nothing significant for next month.
So just one thing, I wonder if the class sizes is having some impact on the teacher burnout and the number of days that they're missing and things like that. I mean, have we looked at how the two would impact each other?
Anecdotally, what goes on in our buildings, the teachers would say class size is very important. We know our student needs are changing. We know that we can't meet individual needs given that the profile of the students we're dealing with today and how difficult that is. If you look at the research, it's very mixed on class size and whether or not it ends up making a difference. Some of it has to do with what age and what kind of instruction kids are getting. So it's not necessarily that the research says a lower class size is going to get you that much farther. It is more of a stress level of the teachers and the kids in the classroom and what we feel like we can address in regards to those needs. So, I think, again, I think that the lower the class size, the more people are the less stressed people are gonna feel. But it's not practical for us to get to desirable. We'll be happy to run that estimate for you prior to next board meeting.
Mr. Hay?
I was just gonna say, when you're doing those numbers, make sure you put all the additional classrooms you're gonna need throughout the district in that figure too, because most of our buildings are already utilizing all of our classrooms, so you can't just add a teacher and have teach in the hall or out in the parking lot, so we have to add a bunch of different.
Well, I think that's part of the concern is you look at the enrollment being reduced, right, across the district, but we don't lose 20 kids in 5th grade in Henderson. Right. So I can subtract a teacher because enrollment went down by 20 kids. We lose 2 kids in kindergarten at Fairmont, and we lose 5 kids in Henderson 5th grade, and so when you can't take away a whole teacher when those reductions are spread out across all of the areas. So looking at that enrollment number is difficult. And then we look at each individual section in each building when we are deciding, should that section have 7 teachers in 5th grade or should it have 6? And what happens if we bring that to 8 or 5? We really do look at each one of those before we bring this recommendation to you. So I think that's one misconception, that just because you've seen that enrollment go down, you should be able to wipe out 5 teachers or 10 teachers. It's spread out across the district in a way that I haven't been able to show that impact.
All right, board, any other questions? No? Good, very good report. Thank you so much for the information. All right, superintendent comments.
Thank you. So candidate filing for the April 7th, 2020 election for the Francis Howell School Board of Education opened on Tuesday and continues until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 21st. On the first day of filing, 4 Francis Howell citizens filed for 3 open positions on the board. The 3 terms of current board members Renee Cope, Patrick Lane, and Mary Lang will expire in April of 2020. In order, as their names will appear on the ballot to this point, the board candidates are Mike Summer, Mary Lang, Patrick Lane, Douglas Ziegemeyer. Almost 100 students from Francis Howell High School, Francis Howell Central, Bryan, and Francis Howell Middle School visited Missouri State Capitol in November for the 71st Annual Missouri Youth and Government Convention. During the conference, attending high school students followed parliamentary procedures and rules of the Missouri General Assembly. 2 Francis Howell High School students served in leadership roles during the conference. Allison Schultz, Francis Howell High School Senior, presided as the Speaker of the House, while Rebecca Amos, Francis Howell High School Senior, served as the Media Director. Our local firefighters dedicate their lives to protecting our community, our homes, and our students in Francis Howell. As part of the nonprofit program Operation Warm, the Cottleville Firefighters Outreach and Central County Fire and Rescue Outreach delivered brand new coats to over 350 Francis Howell students in need to ensure they stay warm this winter. High school students in the district recently cooked up some tasty meals during the inaugural Food for Thought Academy. The The after-school program is sponsored by our food service provider, Sodexo, and Francis Hall North teacher, Becky Just, offers advanced culinary education taught by local professional chefs. The classes are held each month at Francis Hall North and are open to all high schools in the district. Class size is limited to 10 to 15. The program will have an emphasis on the FACS culinary curriculum, advancing what's taught in the classroom and preparing students for a career in the culinary industry. Francis Hall School District's Alternative Learning Program is excited to sponsor and host the annual Community Resource Fair. The Community Resource Fair will take place on Saturday, January 18th at Francis Hall Central in the cafeteria from 12 to 3. And finally, I just want to take a moment to wish you all a wonderful holiday season. Thanks for everything you do for our students during the school year. Here's to a relaxing Christmas break full of family, friends, and fun. Looking forward to seeing everyone again in the new year.
Great, thank you. Board, next on our agenda is Board of Education comments and requests. Does anyone have any requests or comments this evening? Ms.
I
Lang?
do. So now that we have approved the bond issue going on the ballots in April, would it be possible to get an updated communication guideline plan, what our specific action steps are? And I'm sure you probably already have one in the works, maybe 3.
So we do have outlined, Matt has drafted and it actually dates back in regards to the informational campaign.
My video. Oh, you need a microphone?
A 12-week plan that is in draft form. We'd be happy to share that. We can share that prior to the next board meeting and have a conversation about it if you would like.
That'd be great.
It's probably ready to go tomorrow.
Tonight?
Yeah, so our Seeds for Needs campaign actually started last year as we started discussing not only everything that went into the Comprehensive Facilities Master Plan, but trying to lay the groundwork for some of the things going on in buildings like Francis Howell North. The bond issue facilities editorial calendar dates back to September, and we've been doing stuff continually since then, and we have a 3.5 month communications plan now that it's officially Prop S, and in fact, we have a dedicated district e-news going out tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. to all parents in the district as well as all of our staff, and there'll be a lot more communications tomorrow. You'll see it on the district website. At 7 a.m. we have scheduled our Friday Fast Fact, so I'll be happy to share that plan with you.
One of the things that we're going to do a little different this time is we're inviting some principals in on January 6th to have a focus group, which is in Matt's plan, just to talk with them about how they might be more active as the voice of their buildings in regards to the bond issue. So we know that there's some barriers there. We have we've seen some reluctance on the part of some of our principals. We want to get to what is at the root cause of the reluctance. So we'll be having a little focus group with that, with some of the principals, to just understand how we can better support them in being the voice of the bond issue in their buildings. You know, it's nice when all of us go out and do a road show, but people believe it from the people that they know the best, which is going to be the teachers and the principals. So that's something that we'll do a little differently in regards to the informational campaign this time.
It's a big ask, and we're going to need a lot of help from the buildings to get it across the finish line.
100%.
So, will this be a work session then at next meeting? Or is this just gonna be, you're gonna send it out to us, or will it be a work session, or how are we gonna do this, or get the information?
My understanding was I could just email it out to the board tomorrow morning, or we could do a work session, whatever you'd like.
So I think we could, I don't know if that's a request or not, but we certainly would like to send it to you as soon as possible, so that you can have a look at it. If we would like to add it to a work session in January along with the behavior, so that we could look it over, make any adjustments that anyone would like in regards to the informational campaign, we can. Is that a yes, we'd like to talk about it, or a no, we'll look at it and someone will request that if after we look at it, we want to talk about it more?
We can look at it.
So we'll send it
You'll send
to
it
you.
tomorrow.
We'll send it to you, and then between now and then, if anybody would like to request that in work session, Renee and I can add it to the agenda.
Why don't I just send it to you right now so I don't forget about it?
Because you're gonna run home and read it over.
All right, board, any other requests or comments? Okay, let's take a look at our January 16th meeting agenda. Any additions, corrections for our next board meeting? Let's take a look at February 20th. Any additions or corrections at this time? Okay.
Early childhood curriculum, my understanding is it's out there and we have not seen it. I'd like to review it.
Dr. Vanderpool?
Oh,
The curriculum we're writing this year is on hold.
So the ages
The
ages 3 through 5, the multi-age classroom has been put on hold pending some further conversations and research.
Yes.
okay.
All right. Anything else on February 20th meeting? All right. Board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Stigledge. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
It feels like it should be midnight.